Welcome to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. Today we are painting the 8th page of the Ocean Life watercoloring book that I make. Let's get started. Okay, so this is the 8th page. It's a lionfish, and as you can tell, this is a very complex looking image. However, when we start painting it, you'll see it's actually fairly straightforward. And as always, you want to make sure you have your place to mix your colors, usually a porcelain dish or a plate of any kind. A brush, any brush will do. Any watercolor paints, this is my palette, and I'll leave a description with all the colors and what I use. And just 2 jars of water on the side and a rag, and that's all you need. Sometimes you may want to have like just a scrap piece of paper to test out different colors as you're mixing them. But that's not always necessary, especially depending on how comfortable you feel with your palette and painting skills. So the way that we'll paint this is we'll start off by doing a flat wash just to fill in the base color of the animal. And that color is going to be basically, you want kind of a cream or creamy, just like off-white, very light beige sort of color. And the way we'll do that is by getting some brown. Now, what I have mixed over here is way too dark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add yellow. Okay, that's looking a little better. But I'm going to remove a lot of it and then just put a lot of water here. Okay, that's getting closer to what I need. I'm going to add a little bit of red, just a little bit, very small amount, very small amount. And that'll push it a little closer to what I need. I'm going for almost like a very pale skin tone. And let's see. Yeah, this is basically what I need. Because what will happen is you'll be able to see the distinction between the other colors and the base color of the fish. But we don't want it to be very strong. It needs to be light. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead. You see, I'm not concerned at all about the texture or the markings. I'm just filling in everything all around the base color. You know, trying to stay within the overall shape of the fish, but don't worry about all the little stripes in there because we will be going over those. Okay. And also, this color will dry a little lighter than what it looks right now. Like that, like that, like that. And don't worry about being perfect. It does not have to be perfect by any means. You can tell I'm going in there kind of quickly. That's also just my style. I tend to paint very quickly. And the more you paint, you'll get the same way. It's just, you just feel more comfortable, so you're just naturally, anything that you do over and over, you will become quicker at. It's just a matter of repetition. Okay. All that in here. And just careful around the edges. all of that. Okay, all right, so that looks good. So you see what I mean? So now we can tell exactly where everything is. It separates it from the background. And the next thing that we'll do is we're just going to mix the same tone, but it's going to be slightly darker, and we're going to use that to emphasize the shadows. And so the way we'll do that is we'll grab more of the brown, mix it up with some water. I'm gonna get more of the yellow. That's probably too much yellow. I don't know why, but whenever I mix colors, I always usually, if I'm mixing with yellow, I tend to do too much, and I think that's because yellow is a very light color, so it's deceptive in how much you need to mix up with it. Okay, and then a little bit of red, just a very tiny amount. Okay. And I'm gonna get a little more brown. So this all looks good, but now we want it to be, this color is too warm. We want it to be a little cooler. So I'm just gonna grab a little purple. If you don't have purple in your palette, simple solution, just a little bit of blue and red will get the job done. Okay, so this is basically the color that I'm needing. It's just I need it to be lighter, and the way we do that is we just add more water to make it more transparent. Okay, so this is a pretty good shadow color for this base color, and so this is kind of what I'm going for. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's what we need. And so we'll begin by adding it, like for example, over here, at the bottom of the chin, the bottom of this part of the face, a little bit over here where there's like a groove, maybe a little bit underneath the eyeball. So you can kind of get a sense, we're just outlining where there's shadows or kind of like grooves. Imagine that the light is coming from the top. Now, these look very obvious right now, but when we add in the patterns, the shadows will kind of get muted. So this is perfect for right now. Okay, these little tentacles here, just the bottom of them, just like that. This right here, and just very slowly that back here, all of this, that, and then in the back here behind the tentacles, it's kind of tricky. Just go slowly. A little bit right there. Okay. And back here. They're very interesting fish to look at. It's like they have a bunch of tentacles and fins, just like very strange looking. Okay. Over here, the way we'll do it is we're just going to cover all of this. And then as we go up higher, we're just going to go in between the little ridges like that. Okay, and then this one kind of similar. Too much paint on my brush, but basically like that. And then just slowly kind of pulling it out like that, and then do the edge. And the tentacles here. If you mess up a little bit, kind of like I just did in this one, I kind of covered the whole thing. It's okay. It's not a big deal. And this one that's further back here, we're just gonna cover the whole thing. See, that's too much paint on my brush. I'm gonna dry off my brush and then kind of pick up some of that excess color because it looks a little weird. Okay. See, so you can tell now, it gives it form. The shadows give the image, the object, a lot of form. And always feel free to just step up and step back, kind of look at it. That always helps. Sometimes I'll get too zoned in on a painting and I'll get kind of stuck. So anytime I step up and away from the painting, it always helps. The next color that we'll mix is going to be for the stripes. And the way that we will mix that is, again, we're going to get some brown. And then we'll get a little bit of blue. Whatever blue you have works fine. And maybe a little more blue. You want it to be more on the blue side than, you know, kind of like a dark blue-gray. Okay, let me see. That's a little bit, it came out a little too green. I'm just gonna grab a little bit of actual black to throw in there to neutralize it. I usually don't like using black whenever I'm painting organic subject matter. This is just to balance it out a little better. Okay, that looks good. And it is very high contrast compared to the color that we have down here. It is much darker. So this is kind of like the color that I mixed up. It's very, you can see. And also, I know if you've seen my other videos, you know this trick, but I always like to emphasize it. So what you can do is, you see how your brush comes to a nice point? If you have it more up and down, more vertical, you can get really nice thin lines. It's much easier to get thin lines. But if you have it more horizontal, it's much harder to get thin lines because you're using the side of the brush. So you want to have it angled to try to get those nice thin lines. And then you can always sculpt the brush. Like if you have paint and you just kind of like roll it on an edge or something, and then just kind of like make it more into a point, it's always easier to get those nice thin lines. And that's something that we'll need a lot in this one, because all of those little stripes can be difficult to paint. Okay, so here we go. And I do apologize if I obstruct some of the camera, but I do need the brush to be a little more vertical in order to get all the details in there. So let's see, so we're just gonna go slowly. It's always funny, whenever I try to do fine details like this, I find myself holding my breath. And just take your time, focus and don't worry about doing it fast. You just want to do it kind of accurately. I have to always try to remind myself to go a little slower since I have the tendency to try to be quick. You can see here on the shorter stripes, I'm just kind of like filling them in. You can try to do them in one brushstroke, but it's much more difficult. So it's fine if you just do little strokes. As you can tell, this part is very meticulous. I may end up just fast forwarding through this part. Okay, so that took a while, but we have all that in there now. And then the second thing that we'll do is we're just going to add a little more color to this, make it a little darker. And the reason being is that now we can use that to go over the parts that are darker, like more shadowy. So what I mean by that is just mix up a little darker color like I did over here and put it in places that are in shadow, like over here, for example, like that. Like all the parts that we covered earlier. And you can tell which ones those are by following the pattern of the shadows on the underlying layer. And same thing, just kind of slowly, patiently go in and add that shadow. Okay, so that's it for working on the details there. Well, actually, one last little detail is you may want to mix up. You can use just pure black for this if you want to. Basically, the eyeball here. Just go in slowly and just kind of fill it in. And that's perfect. So the next thing we want to focus on is the background. And we'll do that by adding just some blue and some gray, and that's it. And you'll see what I mean and why. So for the blue, we want to mix up we want it to be very transparent. So we want to add a lot of water because we don't want it to be too distracting. So this is probably good right here. And what we'll do is, while we're painting with the background here, we're gonna put it around the edges and then just kind of pull it away from the object to give it a little bit of texture. When you press the brush against the paper, it actually helps pick up the texture underneath and helps create a nice effect. Okay, let's see. So we're just gonna go in around like that and then just press and pull. Press and pull. Trying to make it almost kind of like a vignette. Like that. And same thing going around on top. And just make sure you take your time. You don't want it to overlap. Okay, and then just pull away back here, like that. Give that nice texture. Perfect. Okay, that's perfect. And the last part, we're gonna grab some brown and mix it up with the blue, and that'll give us a nice gray. And once we have our gray mixed, we're just going to do the exact same thing, but this time on the bottom here. We're just going to fill in slowly, carefully, all around. Okay, and once we have all of that, we're just going to pull away like that. And go into details here. Same thing. Add a little bit there and kind of rub it into the paper. And back here. And around the tail. And then just you can also get just a little bit of water just to kind of spread it out and fade it out. And I think we may be done. Feel free to step back, take a look at it. Okay, yeah, I think that looks perfect. Okay, that was it for that one. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment or send me a message or an email. I usually try to respond within 24 hours. And I'll leave a detailed description with all of the tools that I use and everything. That way you can look it up, and I will see you in the next one.